This is Unit 6, Lesson C, Choose the Most Efficient Method. Your objective is I can choose the most efficient method for solving a quadratic equation. You'll also have to be able to explain why you chose that particular method. So, if you guys go ahead and recall, there are three methods that we use to solve quadratic equations. You guys know from the videos you've watched so far in Unit 6, we can solve by factoring, by the square root method, or by the quadratic formula. So this time, what you guys are going to have to do is you guys are going to have to decide which method is going to be the most efficient to solve each quadratic equation. What we mean by most efficient is which way is going to be the quickest and the easiest for you to solve. We want to always make sure we use factoring if we have either an easy trinomial or if we can use the AC method. We will then want to go ahead and make sure we use the square root method, and remember this from that video, if we have no B term. Lastly, we're going to use our lovely quadratic formula that you guys all love if we cannot factor it using the AC method, or if it's not an easy trinomial. So if we take a look at our examples, we're going to have to go through and see which one is going to end up being the most efficient method to solve each quadratic equation. So we have factoring, square root method, or quadratic formula. Looking at example A, we do have a B term. So right away we know we cannot use the square root method. So we're going to want to see, okay, can we go through and can we use factoring in order to solve this? Well, we notice that it's not an easy trinomial, so I'm going to go through and try and use AC method. We would need two numbers that we can multiply to get a negative 12, add to get a negative 11. So if we think about this for a minute, you guys should soon find out that the two factors that work are negative 12 and positive 1. Since these work, we're going to want to go through and use factoring to solve. So we continue with our AC method. So we have 3x squared. Write down your factors, so minus 12x plus 1x, and write down your last term, minus 4 equals 0. Then we can go ahead and we can continue with our AC method. For my first two terms, I can pull out a GCF of a 3x. When I do that, I'm left with x minus 4 in my parentheses. For my last two terms, all I can pull out is a positive 1. So in my parentheses, I'm left with x minus 4. And now we know that we factored correctly because our two parentheses match up. So if I were to just have to factor this, I would have 3x plus 1, remember my terms on the outside, and then x minus 4 equals 0. Remember though, what we want to do is we want to actually solve, so then I have to set up my two equations. 3x plus 1 equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0, and now we just go through and solve. I have to subtract 1 from both sides here. So I get 3x equals a negative 1. Divide both sides by 3. So my first solution is going to be x equals negative 1/3. Remember, we also have to go through and find our second solution too. Here, all I have to do is add 4 to both sides. And when I do that, my second solution is x is going to equal 4. So once again, it was really nothing new besides deciding which method would be the most efficient for you to use. So let's move and take a look at example B. Once again, we have a B term, so we can automatically eliminate the square root method. We're down to factoring or quadratic formula. Well, I don't know about you guys, but if we tried to go through and use the AC method, we would need two numbers we can multiply to equal 6 times negative 35, and then add to an 11x. By the time you guys figured out all those factors, it would probably be a lot quicker for you to go through and for you to use the quadratic formula, because this is not going to be factored very easily. So now all we have to do is make sure we label. We know 6 is our A value, 11 is our B value, and negative 35 is our C value. Now we can go ahead and plug it into our equation. We need the opposite of B, so we need negative 11 plus or minus the square root of, and you guys should all have this memorized already, B squared, which will be 11 squared, minus 4, times A, which is 6, times C, which is a negative 35, all over 2 times A, so 2 times 6. Now it's just a matter of going through and making sure we continue to simplify. So what we have now is we have negative 11 plus or minus the square root of, well, you guys know 11 squared is 121. Negative 4 times 6 times negative 35 gives you a positive 840 all over 2 times 6, which is 12. Keep going, so we have negative 11 plus or minus the square root of 121 plus 840 gives me 961 all over 12. And keep going, so negative 11 plus or minus the square root of 961 is actually a perfect square. It ends up being 31 all over 12. Remember, once we're at this point, what we need to do is we need to split off and set up our two separate equations. So what we have is we have negative 11 plus 31 divided by 12, and then we have negative 11 minus 31 divided by 12. Now we just have to go through and simplify. Negative 11 plus 31 gives me 20 over 12, which will go ahead and reduce to 5/3. So here is one of my solutions. And then over here, I'll end up with a negative 42 over 12. And when we go through and we reduce that, we end up with negative 7 over 2. So my two solutions here would be 5/3 and negative 7/2. My last one then, what you look at is this is not equal to 0 yet, but right away you can pick out that we don't have a b term. So you should be thinking to yourself, okay, the square root method is definitely going to be the quickest. We have x squared minus 12 equals 4, so we want to make sure we get x squared by itself. Go ahead and add 12 to both sides, so we get x squared equals 16, and you guys know square root both sides, so x is going to equal plus or minus 4. And those are always the nice ones because those are a lot faster than the first two. So that's picking the most efficient method. Next, you guys will try these U-tries in class, so don't worry about those for now. But I want you guys to take a look at example 2. Now, example 2 is one of our lovely word problems. And with this, we actually have a lot going on with this problem. So I need to make sure you guys are paying complete and total attention. First of all, it says, a rectangle with an area of 12 square feet has a length of x plus 3 and a width of x plus 2. Part A says, state the equation needed to solve for x in this problem. So first of all, we need to recall our formula for area. We know area is equal to our length times our width, or our base times our height. But I'm going to use length times width because that's what we were given in this problem. So to state the equation, we know our area, that's going to be 12, equals length times width. So my length is x plus 3 times my width is x plus 2, and then that's got to equal my area, which is 12. Remember to use your parentheses because we have a quantity, so when we're multiplying those, we want to make sure we keep them in parentheses. So that part wasn't bad at all. Now, part B, that's where we have a lot of work to do. We have to find out what is the value of x. Well, in order to solve, we know we need to make sure we go through and get our equation equal to 0. So what we have is, I'm just going to rewrite it off to the side here, which you guys should do too, because we have a lot of room for work. So in order to solve this, we need to start by FOILing out what we have, our two binomials on our left-hand side of the equal sign. So let's go ahead and do that. X times x gives me x squared. There's my first. My outer, x times 2 gives me 2x. My inner, 3 times x gives me 3x. And my last, 3 times 2 gives me 6 equals 12. And now let's just keep simplifying. Combine like terms. So x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 12. And now we want to solve. So I'm going to have to subtract 12 from both sides so we can get that equal to 0. So we have x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. So now to solve for x, we have an equation that we can go through and we can factor. So now we have to factor this. It's an easy trinomial, so we could set up our MA chart. Two numbers we can multiply to get negative 6, add to get a positive 5. Our two that work are 6 and negative 1. Since it's an easy trinomial, remember I can just drop those right into my parentheses. So I have x plus 6, x minus 1 equals 0. Now what we have to do is go through and actually solve. So we set up our equations. So x plus 6 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0. Over here, we subtract 6 from both sides, so x equals negative 6. And here we add 1 to both sides, so x equals positive 1. So when it says, what is the value of x? Well, what you need to ask yourself is, hey, we have 2 here, so how am I going to decide? Well, we are talking about area. So we know we have to use the positive value because we can't have anything to do with a negative area. So we can cross off the negative 6. The one we're concerned with is x is going to be equal to 1. So now our last step here is we have to find the length and the width. So your length, remember, was equal to x plus 3. Well, if x is 1, we just need to plug it in. So 1 plus 3 gives me a length of 4. And now we need to do the same thing with our width. My width was x plus 2. Well, x is 1, so 1 plus 2 gives me a width of 3. And remember, we're talking about area, so our length will be 4 feet, and my width will be 3 feet. A way you can check yourself is when we multiply our length and our width together, we should end up with our area, which you guys know, 4 times 3 is 12. So you know you did the problem correctly. We know there's a lot of work there, but it's really nothing new and nothing that you guys can't do. So we will save that next U-Try for class. And just make sure you guys fill out the bottom of your note sheet. After watching this video, what can you do? What do you still not know how to do? And what are you going to do to prepare?